Police officers, what incident will traumatize you for the rest of your life? It was about 3 in the morning when the emergency 911 call tones went off. Immediately I knew something about this call was different. We lived in a small town, and there were almost never calls this early in the morning. 911, what's the address of your emergency? I said as I picked up the phone. Silence. Hello? 911. More silence. I look to my call screen where the coordinates are, where it finally phases to the correct coordinates to map roughly where the caller is. Hello 911, what's your emergency? I repeat again, entering the coordinates in. It maps to a residence in our second smallest city, and immediately I know who our caller is. Marjorie Cannonberry. Don't let her name fool you, she's not a sweet old lady but rather a 32-year-old drug user. Extensive history in our in-house records, and I don't even need to look her up. In my 3 years of dispatching here, I can't recall just 1 week where I didn't have a call with Marjorie. Hello Marge, do you have an emergency? I ask again. Yes, I finally hear her whisper. Okay, what's going on? She pauses, her breathing trembling slightly. There's something in my closet. There's someone in your closet, I asked, quickly typing into my call narrative. How do you know they're there? Did you see them? No, not someone, she whispered again. I could tell she was truly terrified. Something. I don't know what it is. Okay. At this point, I'm convinced Marge is having another drug-induced hallucination. It wouldn't be the first time. Describe for me what it looks like. In the background, Anna is dispatching our area deputy. Please send someone, Marge whispered. Yes, I have a deputy on the way, Marge, but I need you to tell me what you're seeing, I said. When you said something, what did you mean? It's tall, she said. It has to bend over to fit, and it has long claws. She paused, and I could hear her sniffling. She was definitely crying. It's tapping them on the floor, can you hear them? She paused, and I listened carefully to see if I could actually hear anything. Maybe it was my imagination, but I thought just barely I could hear a rhythmic tapping. Did you hear them? She asked almost desperately, like she was begging me to believe her. I ignored her question. What else, Marge? What else do you see? Her voice trembled. It's all black and it has really big teeth. It keeps licking its teeth like it wants to eat me. So it knows you're there? Yes, she said shakily. It's staring right at me. Glowing yellow eyes. For the first time in my life, a shiver went down my spine from her words. Every horror movie I've ever seen came to mind. Though I knew better, my supernatural bone was piqued. Could there really be a demon in her closet? Are you able to leave the room, Marge? I asked, typing all of this into our dispatch narrative. Can you go outside until my deputy gets there to see what's in there? I don't think so, she sobbed. If I move, it'll kill me. Have you been drinking tonight, Marjorie? I know how incriminating it sounded, but it was a legitimate clarifying question. Call me heartless if you want. No, she sobbed again. Please believe me. I know I've done stupid things before, but this is real. I haven't been drinking and I haven't taken any drugs recently. I don't know what it is, but I'm so scared. It keeps tapping its claws. You have to hear them, don't you? The phone cracked as she held it out at arm's length. There was no mistaking this time. I could hear something tapping. A pit formed in my stomach. What the F? It was like the sound of long acrylic fingernails. Okay, Marge, I'm going to stay on the phone with you until my deputy gets there. I looked to our mapping software. He's not super far out, so it shouldn't be too much longer. Okay, thank you, she whispered. It's just staring at me. How long has it been there? I don't know. I woke up to the tapping noise and just saw it there, so I called you right away. Marge said, You don't believe me, do you? It's not that I don't believe you, Marge, I answered. I've just never heard of this sort of thing before. What you're describing sounds like a demon from a horror film. I think it is. Another shiver. Her voice sounded so convinced. Real or not, she was legitimately seeing something. Whether it was an actual demon or a hallucination, part of me felt bad for her. Being absolutely convinced something like what she described was staring at her. It would be terrifying. Marge suddenly gasped and the phone rustled as it fell from her hands. What's going on, Marge? I asked quickly, my tone dropping in seriousness. It's coming toward me, she screamed. Oh God, it's claws! Please help me! My deputy is almost there, Marge, I said loudly over her screams, but I doubt she heard me. If I hadn't been freaked out by then, I was now. Those blood-curdling screams were ones of pure and unfiltered terror. It was like I was listening to someone whose life was coming to an end in the most violent way possible. My pulse was flying as I was trying to type everything I heard into the call. Next to me, Anna was relaying the info to our deputy. Come on, I thought, get there already. The problem with a rural county was that we didn't have as many deputies on as others, so our response time was significantly longer. This particular night, that city's officer had called in sick, so it was the county's job to cover if there were any calls. Alert, be advised, she's screaming and not answering us anymore, Tasha said to our responding deputy. 10, 4, 2 minutes out. I repeatedly tried to get Marge to come back on the phone, but all I could hear were her screams. I could also hear things being thrown around like she was smashing into them with her body. And suddenly, as quick as it had happened, everything went silent. Marge, I shouted. Marge, are you there? The phone crackled. He's going to kill me, Marge said monotonously. He knows who you are now, you're next. And then the line went dead. If I had a handset phone, it would have fallen out of my hand. How would anyone not get unnerved by something like that? The movie lover in me was terrified. You're next. 1303 dispatch, I'm 10, 23. The first responding deputy advised he was on scene. His name was Jason, our youngest deputy on the department. A super nice kid who was probably the best person that could respond to help Marge. Anna held radio traffic just for that call, and we waited for what seemed like an eternity as Jason went into the house. 1303 dispatch. It nearly made me jump out of my seat, my nerves on end. Get a med rolling, she's cut up her arms pretty bad. Within 5 minutes, our med unit was rolling. Jason and Trevor, his backup, ended up chaptering Marge. They came up before Jason transferred her to the mental hospital after getting medical clearance and explained everything that happened. Apparently, Marge was tripping out on drugs, my first suspicion, and decided to cut her arms with razor blades. She'd also trashed her apartment in her drug stupor, which would explain the crashing around I heard. But what about the tapping? I asked. I heard the tapping she was talking about. I don't know anything about that, Jason said with a shrug. But it was probably something she was doing that she didn't realize she was doing. Yeah, you're probably right, I said. But I still couldn't shake the bad feeling. It's sad, honestly, Jason said, retrieving the papers off of the printer that he was printing. She's so fried from drugs, she's just crazy now. I glanced out the dispatch window to the lobby where Trevor was sitting with Marge. She sat with her head hanging down and her arms in bandages. Seeing someone hopped up on drugs was always a little disturbing to me. As if she knew I was looking at her, she lifted her head and her eyes met mine. They grew wide, as if she was about to be hit by a bus, and she pointed at me, letting out another piercing cry. Trevor stood up as she did, putting himself between her and me inadvertently. I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't pointing at me, but rather, behind me. I told myself it was dumb, but why was it I couldn't look over my shoulder? Jason flew out the door with the paperwork he needed, and both struggled down to the front with her to load her up in the squad. In 2 days, hospital staff would find Marge dead in her room, her head somehow twisted unnaturally around. Her death would never have a full explanation. Finally, after taking a deep breath, I turned around. There was nothing there. I let out a breath that I didn't know I was holding and then laughed at myself. Of course, there was nothing there. The rest of the shift went by smoothly, the whole 20 minutes we had left. When we finally left that night, I couldn't wait to go home and go to bed. That call had really rattled me and left me with a headache. I got back to my little apartment, greeted by my little white cat. After giving her more food, I took off my uniform and hung it up in the closet, making sure to close the doors. Hurrying back to my bed, I jumped in and turned the TV on for background noise. That night, I slept with the lights on. Maybe it was just my imagination running wild or the stress of a long week. But as I closed the door to my closet, I could have sworn there was a pair of glowing yellow eyes staring back at me.